The hits were clean, the tackling was sound, and the defense looked like they actually wanted to punish people. We'll talk about that and so much more right here on Locked On Clemson.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of this show, and part-time host and producer over on 105.5 and 97.5 FM, The Roar. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a show. You know how we do this Monday through Friday right here on Locked On. You get exclusive Clemson content every single weekday, and in between episodes, you can follow me over on X at the Morgan T Show, where I talk about all things Clemson and get into some antics between the rival fan bases as well. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Go to FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. Tom Allen's defense, we know now after the spring game, is different. Clemson tackled finally much better. It seems like they're getting on their way back to being one of those elite defenses out there. And we really can't sugarcoat it at all because Clemson's tackling had slipped a lot over the past couple of years under Wes Goodwin. But Saturday, it seemed like there was a total shift. The defense didn't just hit hard. They didn't just go after the ball and play, but they also finished and tackled much better. I know a lot of people on social media also agreed with me as well, making sure that was one of the things that they noticed the most from the team in the spring game was the improvement in tackling. And to be honest with you, why wouldn't it be the thing that was most improved? Because that's exactly what Tom Allen said that he was going to come in and fix immediately. And it looks like to me, when I watch it, vintage Clemson all over again, exactly what we're used to from the Clemson Tigers. You know, Clemson struggled last season with open field tackling. They struggled with edge containment. Basic defensive fundamentals seem to kind of take a step back. You know, it got a little bit worse year over year. Sometimes you would see players that were, I would say, stars or highly recruited players or highly talented players looking extremely hesitant, and their footwork work really wasn't where we used to see it. And it was kind of always behind. And that's why they had given up a lot of big runs during the season, is because they just weren't where they needed to be when they needed to be there. They arrived late. And when they arrived late, they were also not in control of what they were trying to do with their arms or trying to do with their body. That's not the case from what I saw in the spring game, though. From the first quarter all the way to the very end of the game, I felt like that Tom Allen had already greatly improved the team and the tackling and is already showing his kind of fingerprint on this defense. You know, defenders wrapped up. They took the right angles, which, you know, really frustrated me a lot in the past couple of seasons. Just the poor angles of attack, allowing guys who aren't necessarily faster than you look like they're 10 times faster than you. Now, I know Clemson has a talent level that is extremely high on the defensive side of the ball, but if you take bad angles, if you can't wrap up, it makes you look like you don't know how to play big boy football. It makes you look like you don't know what elite level football is, what playoff level football is. And the crazy thing is, they got to the playoffs even with all these problems that we knew that they were having. And they struggled to get ball carriers on the ground when they needed to the most, opting for trying to strip or just sliding down guys, ankle tackles, not working. It wasn't just effort, and it definitely wasn't talent, because Clemson has talent for sure. I think what we're seeing and what we thought was the case is that ultimately it fell on the coach's shoulders. And in that case, it was Wes Goodwin. Now it's on Tom Allen, and it seems like the improvement has jumped off the off the paper for me. He's made an immediate impact. Clemson's defense now, to me, seems more physical. They're more focused on sticking to their assignments, containing the edge. Those are kind of things that we saw kind of slipping. But Tom Allen really didn't need to reinvent the wheel. You know, there were a lot of guys who we have seen them play at a better level than they were playing. So to me, it really wasn't about reinventing the wheel or completely going to a reset on this defense. To me, it was more about being able to get back to the basics. And I think that in just a short amount of time, Tom Allen has done that. The tackling was tighter. The effort was cleaner. The pursuit looked fast, but not out of control fast. And what we saw is just more development into a defensive identity that Tom Allen is trying to bring to the team. And it's an identity that Clemson fans should be used to, because this is the kind of level of play that you have begun to expect from Clemson defenses in the past. And we kind of have forgot about it, but only temporarily, because, you know, we know we're not too far removed from Brent Venables. So we know what it will take and what he did and what the expectations he left behind. When I look back and I break down the spring game, the fundamentals were definitely on display. We know the technique is getting better. The technique and tackling has been emphasized, wrapping up, finishing, not just diving and sliding and missing, not just diving to the ankles. Run defense, you know, statistically, I know it's just a spring game, but when you look at those statistics on the run game, they only allowed 3.7 yards per carry, and the number was much lower when they had the number one starters out on the field. So they were able to make a positive impact on stopping the run, even in the small sample size we saw. And I know we could probably get too far into that because it's a spring game, but I will say that's a positive that Clemson can build on. And when you're out there, a lot of people mentioned to me when they were watching it in person that the discipline is definitely there. The linebackers flowed together. The safeties stayed on top of the ball. The edge, were finally setting the edge or getting around and into the backfield with confidence. It seems like a lot of things are starting to work together in order to get this team back to an elite level of defense. And I know it's just a spring game, and I know some of the starters were missing, but that doesn't explain, you know, away the effort that we saw, the pursuit that we saw, and the integrity, sticking to your assignment. It wasn't just about it being a spring game. It was about seeing what the execution and how it was going to improve. And we saw that. And that part has been missing the past couple of seasons. Tom Allen, I'm not going to say he fixed everything in one spring game. I'm not going to say he fixed everything in 2 months. But he is clearly reestablishing the standards for Clemson, and the players are buying in to what he wants to bring to the table and how he wants to have his defense look on a national level. This is exactly what Clemson needed after the past few years of a drop-off. No more bend, don't break. No more assignment breakdowns in the red zone. No more allowing freshman running backs to just chew up yards against you because of poor tackling. Tom Allen's philosophy is rooted in fundamentals, and they're back to that. Rooted in basics, and they're back to that. And also, he brings a level of toughness that Clemson did not have with Wes Goodwin. And I'm not saying that that's a knock on him at all as far as a person, but when it comes to a defensive coordinator, there's a level of toughness that is expected, and there's a standard that you have to uphold. And if the culture that Tom Allen is bringing to the table sticks, this defensive side of the ball could be one of the best in the country, if not one of the elite defenses in college football in 2025. I know we still have a long way to go. I know it's just a spring game, and we have many months to go before LSU, but I'm going to say it now. Clemson's defense looks sharper. They are more accountable, and they are more physical than they did last season. And those are all things that we expected, and those are all things that we are already seeing here in the spring of 2025. All right. Coming up next, I'm going to talk about Jeremiah Alexander and how well he did and my thoughts for his performance from the spring game. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bet if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. Plus, when the game tips off, you can combine live prop bets into a same game parlay for a big chance to win. And the app is easy to use, and you get paid super fast. Don't miss out. Head over to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Seven tackles, one jaw-dropping stop on Keith Adams, and a message that was sent to the entire locker room that Jeremiah Alexander is here to face the biggest competition out there, and he is going to be or fighting for a position to start on Clemson's defense. Jeremiah Alexander transferred from Alabama with upside, but a little bit of uncertainty. He was learning the mic spot, adapting to a new playbook, flying under the radar. He's got a lot to learn right now. He didn't get a lot of opportunities at Alabama. And so he's a 5-star guy that needs to be able to show what he can do. He's learning the position. He's learning Tom Allen's playbook and what Clemson wants to do. He's not being talked about as much as Sammy Brown and Wade Woodaz. Those guys are grabbing the headlines. But on Saturday, Jeremiah Alexander didn't just hold his own. He controlled the middle of the field. He looked like the most physical player out there. He looked like a very confident linebacker on the field. And the coaching staff clearly trusts him to be out there and run the defense through him, even though it was the second unit that was out there. I think you have an opportunity to see what Jeremiah Alexander was able to do. And he's got a renewed sense of urgency. He's got a new purpose here at Clemson, and he's kind of getting a second lease on life. Dabo Swinney likes to say that Jeremiah Alexander left him at the altar, and we know from what we heard from inner workings of how that all went down, a lot of it was based on financial opportunities that were made available to him, and I don't blame him for that because Alabama's going to definitely give you those things. But now he gets to do something where he gets to play with his friends and he gets to finally show what he can do and get his opportunity here at Clemson. Now, is he already an immediate starter? No. But after that kind of performance in a spring game, why wouldn't you think about giving him some more trust or trusting him more to give him more opportunities? He didn't just hold his own, like I said. He looked like an imposing defender, a guy that you have to worry about, a guy that you almost have to scheme around. The coaching staff trusts him. He didn't just have a good day. He played his way now, in my opinion, into the starting conversation. And that might be exactly what Clemson needs to be able to get the team to the next level on defense, injecting some of this new personality and this new life into this team. He's instinctive. He hits with absolute bad intentions, and his size and speed can plug the gaps, take on blocks, and stop the run from sideline to sideline. He is truly a 5-star guy that just needs one more opportunity, and Clemson will give that to him. I look forward to seeing what I can see from him. Clemson hasn't had a thumper type linebacker in quite some time. This guy hits, and he hits absolutely with devastation. He hits hard as possible. When I look back at the spring game, you first look at the stat line, and I understand the spring game is what it is, but 7 tackles. He had a few highlight hits that you could see over on social media, and he had complete control of the middle of the field, stopping a lot of runs in the A-gap, making it very difficult for the offense to do anything up the middle. And that's really going to kind of demoralize the opponents as they have to face that throughout the season. He could be a rotational guy right now. I think he's already ready for that. But he's one of those guys that is pushing for some true looks and some trust at the Mike linebacker position. He's quarterbacking the defense, at least in the second string, communicating, diagnosing, realigning the line and the shifting the defense and reacting like the veteran he really is. And I understand Sammy Brown, Wade Woodaz, those are the starters, but there has to be that third linebacker. Does there not? Maybe Clemson will stick into that 4-2-5, and I know that can frustrate a lot of people to even mention that, because most people that are Clemson diehards probably want to go back to the 4-3-4, what Clemson has been used to for all these years. The fact of the matter is, with the way that a lot of the teams are passing as much as they are, the 4-2-5 is more natural for them, I guess, or more of a base defense for pass-heavy type of offenses. Really, it's just a nickel, and you only have two linebackers. I think some of that was also because of the depth at linebacker for Clemson was not there. I think some of that was because the trust for linebackers were not there for Clemson. But I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Sammy Brown, Wade Woodaz, and Jeremiah Alexander in a 4-3 setup. And I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Jeremiah Alexander out there if you were in a goal line situation with 4-4. I think that he is definitely one of those guys that's going to get a lot of opportunities. And hopefully as the season goes on, you're not going to be able to keep him off the field, because he's not just a good player on paper. He's got motor, he's got instincts, he's a physical force, and he forced the coaching staff to take notice from that spring game. The elite players and the guys that are just ballers, you're not going to be able to keep them off the field for very long. He's going to hit harder. He's going to get in on a lot of plays. And we've already seen what he can do in just a small sample size. But to me, I already like the returns that we're getting from Jeremiah Alexander. And this is exactly why Clemson in the transfer portal can be extremely dangerous, because even when they fail or they may not work out in the recruiting trail, the relationships that were built at Clemson with the coaching staff are so impactful year over year. If you show someone who your genuine self is, and you're vulnerable, and you show them what type that you care about them and what type of person you are, even if they don't pick you at first as a freshman, maybe years down the road, like with Jeremiah Alexander, dividends are paid forward, and you can use that player because they transfer back in because of that trust and that relationship that was built many years ago. This is why the transfer portal matters, and this is why if Clemson's involved in it, they're going to be lethal. They're going to be able to get blue chip guys that maybe they missed the first time through, but they getting guys that need fresh starts, not guys that are complete rebuilds or a complete waste or just an all-time bench player, but guys like Jeremiah Alexander that are going to come in and show what they can do from the first snap. Match him up with a coach like Ben Boulware, and that is a linebacker matchup made in heaven. Add in Tom Allen's defensive scheme and what Clemson's trying to do this season. You're looking at somebody who could go from a relative unknown, a guy that was maybe seen as a 5-star bust, to someone who could inject himself into the rotation and then hopefully in the future into the starting lineup, and then maybe even get into some postseason awards for Jeremiah Alexander. Hey, why not? He's got limited time left. He has to show what he can do. Who else would you rather put your money on, if you will, figuratively speaking, to have their best season than a guy who knows his time is running out? I wouldn't be surprised if Jeremiah Alexander is out there calling signals later on in the season, maybe earlier than we thought, because he does seem like a veteran that has that leadership ability. He looks the part, and he's playing like he's ready to show the nation who he is. All right, we're going to finish up the show talking about the future is now. We mentioned the linebackers. We mentioned Tom Allen and how he's reshaping the defense. We're also going to talk about that defensive line and some of those guys that we saw that we really liked as well. Now, these guys may be younger guys, but they're looking like guys that were huge hits for the recruiting trail and some guys that can definitely dominate as the season goes on. Clemson's defensive line has always really been, we don't ever talk about this much, but it's been a strength. We don't talk about Clemson being D-line university, but year in and year out, they send players to the NFL, and they don't get a lot of credit for it in a lot of ways, nationally speaking. Tyler Davis and Ruka Roro were the latest ones to go out. Christian Wilkins, Cleveland Ferrell, and Dexter Lawrence, those guys were also able to go into the NFL draft and show what they can do. Clemson has been needing to get a few guys in there to kind of solidify that Avengers or Power Rangers or whatever it may be. I guess they have to go by a new name now, but they've been kind of missing that full group of guys, That's why I don't think we've really been getting the kind of fun group names that we used to get in the past, because it's kind of been a little bit of patchwork, been a little bit of injuries here and there, and some lack in recruiting wins that have allowed some gaps at some positions. But we saw on Saturday that some of the new wave guys are ready to make a name for themselves for the Clemson football team. Darien Mayo, I think, is one that everybody talked about, especially on the radio. Ben Milstead mentioned it on on out of bounds recently this week about how just tall he is and just imposing he is, and that not just that he's a physically intimidating guy because of his height and weight and his measurables, but because he was literally everywhere. And that's what we're bragging about with Jeremiah Alexander. And that's what I love bragging about with Darien Mayo. He was everywhere, getting in on almost every single play when he was out there. And those are the kind of little things that maybe the casual fan misses out on. But guys like you and me, fans like you and me, rather, that are more diehard, that, really kind of analyze the spring game more than most, can kind of see these players showing out. And the guys that want to come out there and kind of show and have something to prove are the ones that I really circle and look forward to in 2025. As we mentioned, another guy to look forward to is Amari Adams. We already did a show on him. He's extremely explosive. I saw a couple of plays from Vic Burley and Marcus Dixon. They both had a couple of splash plays. And it doesn't matter that we don't know their names. They're not household names yet. They're young for sure, but they are ready to get in the mix and show Clemson fans what they can do. Dabo has quietly recruited a lot of guys that are hungry to kind of make a name for themselves and make an impact this season immediately. And it wasn't just flashes that we saw at the spring game. We saw a good pad level. We saw good technique. I felt like a lot of these guys that they had great effort the entire spring game. Mayo had a sack and 2 tackles for loss. Vic Burley is just a massive human being eating up interior double teams left and right. Amari Adams, we've already drooled over him for 2 or 3 episodes, but he looks like a guy who it's not going to take long before you're talking about where he's going to play on Sunday. Clemson may not need to wait another year to continue to develop guys, because what we're seeing is a lot of these young guys, they're saying, hey, don't forget about me. It's my time here. And, we talked about it on this podcast. This is kind of where I talked about the offense much more. There's a lot of guys on offense that say, hey, don't forget about me, like David Eziomume. But there's also equally amount of the same people, or maybe even more, on the defensive side of the ball that are raising their hand saying, excuse me, my name's Darien Mayo, and I'm a menace. My name's Amari Adams, and I'm here to, make a name for myself. My name's Marcus Dixon. I used to play tight end, but now I'm a defensive end. And by the way, I know how to play it because I played in high school. He picked up a sack as well. And then, hey, my name is Vic Burley. I know I got injured, but I still have power. I can still disrupt the interior of the offensive line. Matchups were being won in the spring game with these guys on the defensive line and the second string guys and some of the backup guys and rotational guys. And it kind of goes back into it. You've got a group of guys that are trying to fight to get more opportunities. And I think it's a good thing. I think that Clemson definitely needs to be able to rotate the defensive line. They need guys that they can trust, and to keep everybody healthy, keep Peter Woods healthy, keep Will healthy, Demonte Capehart healthy. These guys need to be able to rotate here and there to be able to, play a long season. As we've said many times, the season is just getting longer and longer. Now, I'm sure some will say, Morgan, don't get too excited here. It's the backup offensive line, and who knows about anybody's backup offensive line. But guess what? I think that it's all about matchups, and you can only win the matchup and have a better technique in the competition that you have in front of you. So the worst case scenario would be that we're not talking about these guys at all. That they went into the spring game and made no impact at all. They made nobody look twice. They had no highlight reels on social media. That would be a huge loss for me. But they didn't. And they weren't just scrub guys. They're beating scholarship guys. They're beating backup guys that are highly rated guys and highly recruited guys. If they're doing that now, it kind of goes back to it's all about building towards the fall. If you didn't talk about them now, you're not going to talk about them in the fall. I think if we talk about them now and we get excited about what is to come with this Clemson defense, I think in the fall we're going to get maybe not be as surprised because we'll be waiting for it, but we're going to get a ton of excitement from these guys. Now, this is the kind of stuff, though, the one word that a championship team needs. What is the one word? And to me, the one word that a championship team, at least definitely on the defensive side of the ball, is depth. They need to be able to sub in and out. They need to have guys they can trust. So they're not just running the same guy out there for the entire game getting gassed. Clemson doesn't just have talent in their first unit, and we know they do. They definitely have a starting group that should be one of the most talented teams in the country. But they've got waves of guys not only on the offense but on the defense as well to go in and rotate and dominate. That's how you win close games. That's how you win the fourth quarter, and that's how you win the postseason. The future is already here. These guys are ready to play. They're trying to fight for their opportunity. Mayo, Adams, Burley, and many more out there saying, hey, don't forget about Clemson's defensive line. The tradition is there. D-Line University is there. Ton of guys in the NFL that were from Clemson. The tradition is not going anywhere. They're just going back in and reestablishing that tradition. And I'm really excited about it, and I hope you are as well too. Hey, thank you so much for being a part of today's episode, and thank you for making Locked On Clemson your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Draft with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez as our favorite college players get ready for the NFL Draft. The latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. Check out Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's it for today's show. Thank you so much. We'll see you Friday. We'll wrap up our spring game extravaganza of the week. And as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you tomorrow, and we'll see you at the top of the hill.